They tried to break you before you even knew who you were, before you discovered the power buried deep within your bones, before you ever spoke your first word of truth. Chosen one, the attacks didn't start because you were weak, and they came because you were destined to become unstoppable. You were targeted young, early, and often. And the reason was simple. Hell recognized you before you recognized yourself. You see, in the spiritual realm, light has a scent, a frequency, a resonance that can't be hidden no matter how much you try to shrink yourself. Play small or blend in. The darkest forces don't wait until you're confident or established to come for you. No, they strike while the anointing is still forming. They aim for the seed, not the fruit. Because if they can corrupt the root, they can steal the harvest. That's why your childhood felt heavy. Why your teenage years felt like a battlefield. Why, even when you couldn't understand the why, pain followed you like a shadow. You weren't cursed. You were marked by heaven and watched by hell. People around you sensed it too, that you were different. Maybe they didn't have the words for it, but they felt it in your presence. Some admired it, others resented it, but most couldn't understand it. And when people can't understand something divine, they often demonize it. They'll label you rebellious, antisocial, overly sensitive, too intense, too quiet, too deep. But what they're really saying is, you make me confront something I don't want to face. And so you were misunderstood, isolated, misjudged, and yet still standing. Why? Because you were never meant to be ordinary. Ordinary people don't get attacked for just existing. But you, just walking into a room shifts energy. Your silence speaks louder than most people's words. Your presence disrupts darkness. That's why certain people couldn't stand you without ever truly knowing you. That's why rejection came not as punishment, but as redirection. God was protecting your path by pruning your circle. Now, here's the deeper truth that they didn't come for your personality. They came for your potential. The enemy's greatest fear was never your past. It's your future. It's who you are becoming. And the thing is, the enemy doesn't attack anything that's not a threat. You were born a threat, wrapped in divine purpose, covered in spiritual favor, a blueprint that cannot be replicated. And because of that, darkness launched an early campaign against you. But even then, even in your most fragile, most confused moments, there was a shield. You may not have seen it, but you felt it. That strange sense of being carried when you should have collapsed. That whisper that told you to get up one more time. That mysterious protection when you should have lost everything. Chosen one, you weren't lucky. You were covered by the prayers of your ancestors, covered by the hands of the divine, covered by the assignment on your life. And yet, the enemy didn't stop. He doubled down. Because the more you survived, the more dangerous you became. Every time you endured what was meant to destroy you, your spiritual armor thickened. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every disappointment, it wasn't wasted. It was weaving something indestructible around your soul. You've likely wondered, why me? Why all the betrayal? Why the loneliness? Why the spiritual warfare that never seems to let up? And here's the answer, straight and clear, because you carry something rare. You are not just another body walking the earth. You are a vessel, a portal, a divine disruption to darkness, and hell knows it. That's why the pressure has always been unnatural, and the people sent to destroy you, most of them didn't even realize they were being used. That's how subtle spiritual warfare can be. The enemy can whisper into a wounded soul, and that soul unknowingly becomes a weapon against your destiny. It wasn't always about you. It was about the light in you that exposed their hidden shadow. Your presence revealed the truth they were trying to ignore. And rather than face it, they turned against you. But here's what they didn't understand. And here's what hell still hasn't figured out. You are protected, not because you earned it, but because you were chosen. This isn't about perfection. It's about position. You were positioned for purpose. And the moment heaven placed its hand on your life, hell began plotting your downfall. But every plot has failed. Every attempt has only refined you. The fire didn't burn you, it purified you. The storm didn't drown you, it trained you. The darkness didn't break you, it awakened you. And now, you're not who you were. You're aware. You've started to see patterns, to discern energy, to trust your intuition. And that awareness is the enemy's worst nightmare. Because once a chosen one awakens, they can't be manipulated like before. They can't be silenced like before. They can't be controlled like before. So listen to me closely now. Your earliest battles were never about punishment. They were preparation. Every loss carried instruction. Every betrayal revealed truth. Every breakdown birthed a deeper resilience. And now you're stepping into the chapter where your shield becomes undeniable. Not because life gets easier, but because your spirit gets stronger. The attacks may still come, but they won't hit the same. Because now you understand what tried to break you actually built you, and what tried to silence you only sharpened your voice. You're not here by accident. You're here on assignment, and chosen one. Your divine shield. It's not only unbreakable, it's eternal. You've made it through storms that would have crushed most people, not just once, but over and over. And yet somehow, through it all, you kept going. You didn't realize it at the time, but you were walking with a shield around your soul, a hidden armor unseen by human eyes, but undeniable in its power. There were moments when you should have lost your mind, moments when the betrayal cut so deep, it felt like your spirit was bleeding, nights when the silence was so loud, you wondered if God had forgotten you. But even then, something kept you, a peace you couldn't explain, a strength you couldn't trace, a light faint at times, but steady that never let the darkness have the final word. That was your divine shield at work, and it wasn't something you earned. It was something you inherited. It was written into your spiritual DNA long before you were born. Because God knew what you would face. He knew the assignments of darkness that would try to attach themselves to you. He knew how cruel this world can be to those who carry divine light. So, He made sure you would be surrounded by protection that defies understanding. Chosen one, this shield isn't made of metal or stone. It's made of the prayers spoken by generations you've never met. It's made of the favor stitched into your calling. It's woven from grace, tested by fire, and fortified by every spiritual battle you've survived. You don't wear this armor the way the world wears status or power. Yours is invisible to the eye, but blinding in the realm of spirit. Demons see it, energies feel it. That's why you walk into certain rooms and everything shifts. People get nervous. Conversations change. Fake masks fall off, not because you said anything, but because your shield speaks for you. It speaks of authority, of alignment, of truth. You ever notice how people you just met start confessing things they've never told anyone? Or how complete strangers either cling to you like lifelines or avoid you like you're radioactive? That's not coincidence. That's the divine shield doing its work. It reveals, it exposes, it amplifies the truth, and truth makes the enemy nervous. This armor doesn't just protect it, purifies. It won't let certain people get too close. It blocks energy that isn't meant for you. It filters deception and redirects manipulation. That's why some relationships fell apart even though you did everything right. That's why certain doors never opened. Even though you knocked with all your heart, your shield wasn't rejecting your desires, it was redirecting your destiny. Because the wrong alignment can delay the right assignment, you were never meant to fight every battle. Some things didn't fall apart, they were pulled apart. For your sake, for your future, for your spiritual preservation. Because this armor is connected to your mission, and the mission is too critical for you to be entangled with people or patterns that drain your light. Now, I want you to pause for a second and let this truth settle in. You were protected, even in the places you didn't know were dangerous. Think back, how many times did you walk away from something or someone with a strange feeling in your chest? How many close calls did you chalk up to luck? How many times were you rejected and only later realized that rejection saved your soul? You've been walking in divine protection your entire life. Not because you're better, but because you're called. Think of Moses, a baby born under threat of death. A child floated in a basket through dangerous waters, and yet he was protected, hidden in plain sight in the palace of the very man trying to kill him. Why? Because destiny carries divine insurance, and so do you. Moses wasn't shielded because he had it all together. He was shielded because he was chosen, and like Moses, your protection hasn't always been comfortable. Sometimes, it felt like exile, like wilderness, like silence. But that wilderness, that was your training ground. That silence, it taught you to hear God's whispers. That exile, it preserved your purity. The shield didn't just keep you safe, it kept you sacred. Because what's on your life is sacred. That's why you couldn't go where everyone else went. That's why you couldn't do what everyone else did. Every time you tried to fit in, something in you resisted. It's not that you're better, it's that you're built different. And what's built different requires different protection. This is why you never fully crumbled, even when everything around you did. Your armor wasn't external, it was spiritual. You've carried an invisible covering, reinforced with every silent prayer, every tear, every God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway. That kind of faith builds a fortress around your soul. And hear me on this, there's nothing random about the fact that you're still here, breathing, listening, awakening. After all the warfare, after all the sabotage, after all the times you were lied on, left out, overlooked, and underestimated, you didn't make it because you're lucky. You made it because you're covered. So when people wonder why you didn't break like they expected, tell them this: my shield is not of this world. Let them wonder, let them assume, let them talk. They can't touch what they can't comprehend. And the more they try to pierce your armor, the more frustrated they'll become. Because every dart, every arrow, every lie will hit the shield and fall to the ground. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, not because you fight harder, but because your spirit is surrounded by something darkness can't decode. Chosen one, your armor is confirmation. You don't just survive, you reveal. You reflect a divine truth, and truth always threatens lies. That's why they fear you. That's why they mock you. That's why they try to dim your light. But your shield won't let them. So stand tall, not in arrogance, but in sacred awareness. You are covered, you are held, and no matter what comes against you, it can't touch what God has sealed. Chosen one, if only you could see what darkness sees when it looks at you. If only your natural eyes could glimpse into the spiritual realm for even a moment. You'd understand why the enemy has been so relentless. To those who dwell in shadow, your very presence is blinding. You may walk softly, speak gently, and try to stay out of the spotlight, but in the spirit, you're a roaring fire. You radiate frequency, light, power. You might think of yourself as just trying to survive, trying to keep your head down, trying to heal and grow and stay afloat. But in the unseen realm, you are feared. Because when a chosen one walks into a room, the atmosphere shifts, the masks slip, the darkness trembles, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. There's a light encoded in your spirit that darkness cannot replicate or duplicate. It's not charisma, it's not charm, it's something far deeper, divine authority. That's what demons see. They don't see your outer shell. They see your frequency. They see the shield wrapped around your soul. They see the fire that's been kindled through every trial you've endured. And that fire, it's not flickering. It's not dim. It's growing. Every heartbreak you've survived has fed it. Every moment you chose truth over comfort has fueled it. Every time you forgave when you could have retaliated, that fire blazed higher. This is why some people have recoiled from you without reason. It's why certain energies couldn't sit still around you. They weren't reacting to you. They were reacting to the authority you carry. You're not too much. You're a mirror, a divine reflection. And for those still hiding from their own truth, a mirror is threatening, even in silence. You speak volumes. Your eyes see too much. Your spirit picks up on the unspoken. You read the energy in the room before words are exchanged. That's not paranoia, that's discernment. It's part of your wiring, and it's why you've never quite been able to pretend. Pretending feels like poison to someone like you. But here's the secret. Most people will never admit your presence convicts. Not because you judge, but because you don't conform. You show people that truth is possible, that integrity is real, that freedom exists. And when people are still shackled to lies or ego or illusion, they either want to follow you or destroy you. And the enemy, he's terrified of what you might awaken. Because the truth is, you weren't just chosen for yourself. You're a key, a liberator. Your very presence awakens the sleeping. Reminds others that there's more than what this world offers. You don't fit into the boxes society created. You were never meant to. You don't move like the crowd. And that is spiritual rebellion against a system built on lies. Think of Jesus. He was love incarnate, healing the sick, feeding the hungry, teaching truth. And still he was hated. Why? Because his very presence disrupted religious system, exposed hypocrisy, and revealed spiritual emptiness. He didn't even need to speak for demons to manifest. His frequency was enough. And chosen one, you walk in that same lineage. You carry a divine frequency that threatens every stronghold. And you know what's wild? Some of your biggest enemies saw your light long before you did. They saw potential in you before you had language for it. They recognized your grace, your glow, your essence, and instead of honoring it, they tried to dim it. Because some people are so broken, they believe that dimming another's light makes theirs brighter. But what they didn't realize is, your light doesn't come from you. It flows through you, and that means they can't stop it. You've likely asked yourself, why do I attract so much jealousy? Why do I become a target for no reason? And here's the answer. Plain and simple, because spiritual royalty carries weight. Because when you walk into a place, you don't just enter physically. You bring your entire lineage with you. Your purpose, your calling, your anointing, your ancestors, your angels, your favor, your assignments, all of that walks in with you. And the room feels it. Even if no one understands it, there's something intimidating about someone who is deeply rooted and cannot be swayed. You don't chase approval. You don't need validation. And when you walk in that kind of spiritual confidence, it dismantles every lie the enemy told others about themselves. So yes, you've been misunderstood. Yes, you've been isolated, but don't you dare shrink because others can't handle your magnitude. Instead, own it, because the darker the world becomes, the more necessary your light is. The enemy will try to send distractions, people who pretend to support you, only to sabotage. Voices that whisper self-doubt, delays that make you question your timing, but none of it changes this truth. You are untouchable in the spirit, not because you're perfect, but because you're positioned. You've been positioned in places you didn't even ask for, elevated in ways you couldn't explain, survived things that should have crushed you. Why? Because when your spirit is wrapped in divine energy, darkness can observe, but it cannot penetrate. And it's not just protection, it's projection. Your light sends out a frequency that warns the enemy. This one is sealed. This one is assigned. This one is not to be touched. So when the warfare feels intense, don't assume you're failing. Often, it's confirmation that your light is breaking through layers of deception, that your frequency is disrupting plans in the unseen, that your purpose is irritating spirits that have grown too comfortable. Chosen one, this world needs what you carry. You were born to reflect divine truth in a culture of compromise, and that makes you dangerous to every lie, every illusion, every stronghold. But you're not just dangerous. You're protected, not by chance, by covenant. So walk boldly, speak freely, shine fully, because while others may only see a person, the darkness sees a warrior of light. Chosen one, have you ever noticed how the pressure increases right before everything shifts? How the warfare intensifies? The people around you get more unpredictable, and your spirit feels like it's walking a tightrope over a storm. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That is spiritual strategy. The enemy strikes hardest right before heaven moves. And if you've been feeling like you're under fire lately, it's because you're on the edge of something sacred. You see, darkness doesn't waste energy. It doesn't chase after anyone without influence. It doesn't send its strongest attacks to people who pose no threat. No, when you start getting close to breakthrough, when you start aligning more fully with your calling, when your light becomes impossible to ignore, that's when all hell starts throwing tantrums. Because breakthrough is loud in the spirit, even if you can't hear it yet. Think about the moments in your life when everything seemed to fall apart, not just externally, but inside your mind and heart. When the attacks came from people you loved, when it seemed like your prayers were hitting the ceiling, when you questioned whether you had what it took, those weren't random low points. They were pressure points, because the enemy always tries to abort what heaven is about to birth. He sees what's coming, not in full clarity, but enough to know you're dangerous. And when your spirit gets pregnant with purpose, when the light in you reaches a frequency that breaks through strongholds, the resistance shows up like clockwork. Moses was hunted at birth because he was destined to be a deliverer. Jesus was targeted in infancy because he carried divine disruption. And you've been targeted not because you're weak, but because you're carrying something holy, something heaven ordained, something hell wants to prevent. And here's the thing, your spiritual contractions come in the form of pressure, rejection, isolation, internal wrestling. That's what labor feels like in the soul. But don't confuse pressure with punishment. Pressure is confirmation. It means the spiritual realm knows you're getting close. Now, I want you to look back on the moments you thought were setbacks. The relationships that ended, the opportunities that dissolved, the people who turned on you. At the time, it may have looked like failure, but in truth, those were divine removals, pruning disguised as loss. Heaven was making room. emptying your hands so you could receive the greater thing that was coming. Because breakthrough can't enter a life full of distractions, and just like a sword must pass through fire before it gains its edge, your soul had to be tested, refined, pressed, shaped, not because God delights in your pain, but because your mission requires spiritual depth that can only be forged in fire. The enemy knows this too. That's why he doesn't just attack your circumstances, he goes after your mind, whispering lies, feeding doubt, making you question your identity, trying to get you to abort your own mission before it ever manifests. That's the real strategy, because the only one who can cancel your assignment is you. But you didn't break. You're still here, and that is dangerous. You're not the same person you were when this journey began. You're more resilient now. You've developed discernment. Your ears have been trained to hear what others miss. Your spirit knows the sound of fake support. Your heart has learned how to recognize who is for you and who is sent to distract you. And that's why the attacks have evolved. Because the old tactics no longer work. You've outgrown your old enemies. And now, the warfare feels more subtle, more psychological, because if the enemy can't stop you from rising, he'll try to corrupt your thoughts, make you doubt yourself, convince you you're unworthy of what's coming. But chosen one, hear this loud and clear. You are worthy, you are ready, and you are protected. Yes, there may still be moments when fear creeps in. That's normal. But fear doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're standing in front of something bigger than what you've seen before. Something that requires a new level of courage, trust, and surrender. And even when you feel unsure, your shield remains unshaken. Because your protection isn't based on your mood, your performance, or your confidence. It's rooted in your covenant. You've been assigned. You've been anointed. And that anointing doesn't expire when you get tired. It doesn't vanish when you feel unqualified. It's constant. It's sovereign. That's why the battle is so fierce right now. Because you're not just walking into a season, you're walking into a dimension, a new level of clarity, of impact, of alignment. And the enemy wants to exhaust you before you enter. But exhaustion is not the end. It's the edge. The signal that the spiritual atmosphere is about to break. So don't misread the turbulence. Planes hit the most resistance right before they ascend. And that's exactly where you are. Ascension isn't always pretty. It's not always peaceful. It can be loud, disorienting, lonely, but it is holy. It is sacred, and it is promised. So don't retreat. Don't doubt the process. Remember that God is strategic. He doesn't waste pain. He doesn't allow battles just to watch you bleed. Every wound has purpose. Every scar carries wisdom. Every delay was divine timing in disguise. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are being prepared. And preparation often feels like pressure. But pressure produces power, so keep pressing forward. Keep trusting the whispers in your spirit. Keep showing up day by day, breath by breath, because the darkness wouldn't be fighting this hard if you weren't on the brink of something world-shaking. Chosen one, you're almost there. And what's waiting for you on the other side of this warfare? Elevation. There comes a moment in the life of every chosen one where sight alone is no longer enough. You begin to realize that not everything good is godly. Not every smiling face is your ally. Not every opportunity is sent from above. This is where discernment becomes your most sacred weapon, sharper than intellect, more precise than intuition. It is not just a skill. Chosen one, it's a spiritual gift, and it's part of your divine shield. Discernment is what kept you from walking into traps you couldn't see with your natural eye. It's what made your spirit feel uneasy around certain people, even when everything on the surface looked perfect. It's the chill you felt, the hesitation, the still small voice whispering, "This isn't for you." Even when everyone else was celebrating it. That wasn't paranoia, that was spiritual intelligence. And the deeper your calling, the more necessary your discernment. Because the enemy doesn't always come with horns and flames. Sometimes he comes with charm and compliments. He studies you, waits for patterns, disguises himself in whatever you've been praying for. And if your discernment isn't active, you might mistake distraction for destiny. This is why some connections fell apart fast. It wasn't because you failed. It was because your spirit recognized what your heart wasn't ready to admit. That person, that place, that promise, it wasn't aligned with your mission. And your shield didn't just defend you from harm. It redirected you to truth. Discernment isn't just about saying no to bad things. It's about recognizing the difference between good and God. And as your calling rises, the counterfeits become more convincing, not because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared, trained, sharpened for greater things. Now, I need you to understand this clearly. The divine shield around you isn't just passive. It's not just a wall. It's a living, breathing interface between heaven and earth that communicates with your spirit. That's why you can feel the vibration of someone's intentions before they speak. That's why you sometimes wake up heavy in your soul, sensing something shifting in the atmosphere. That's why you know things you were never told and understand patterns before they unfold. Discernment is how God keeps you 10 steps ahead. And that's threatening to darkness, because while others are reacting, you are perceiving. While others are lost in distraction, you are tuned into divine frequency. And the more you trust that internal knowing, the less susceptible you become to deception. You've already seen this in your own life. Remember the moments you ignored that gut feeling, and everything fell apart. And remember the times you listened, even when it made no sense, and somehow you were spared. That's discernment doing its work. Sometimes it doesn't come with thunder or clarity. It comes with a whisper, a pause, a sense of discomfort you can't explain. Don't dismiss that. Your shield is not only protection, it's perception. It allows you to see through smiles, to hear the truth beneath the words, to feel the energy behind intentions. It's how you survive in a world designed to manipulate the senses. And while the world calls it being sensitive, heaven calls it being tuned in. You were never meant to rely solely on logic. You were wired for revelation. Chosen one, this gift has made you feel crazy at times, because everyone else seemed fine with things that made your skin crawl. You couldn't stay in certain environments, even when they seemed harmless to others. You couldn't tolerate shallow conversations, false praise, or dishonest energy. You weren't being difficult. You were being spiritually alert. And that alertness isn't a weakness. It's your superpower. It's what allows you to recognize spiritual warfare in disguise, to see patterns in people's behavior before they fully manifest, to walk away before the damage is done, to move in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're being led. You've likely questioned this part of yourself, wondered why you can't just let things slide like other people. But chosen one, you were never meant to be numb. Your spirit is finely tuned because you are called to operate with surgical precision. Every connection, every conversation, every yes, it all matters. Because when you carry divine frequency, your alignment is everything. One wrong agreement can delay your assignment. One wrong door can pull you off course for years. So your shield, your discernment, is heaven's way of keeping you on track. Not because God wants to limit you, but because what you carry is too important to be diluted. And don't be surprised if your discernment has recently increased. That's not just growth, it's grace. God is elevating you. And with elevation comes higher stakes, greater assignments, sharper weapons, and with that comes an increased ability to sense what's truly going on beneath the surface. This is why certain people have been removed without warning, why certain plans keep falling through, why you keep circling back to solitude. It's not rejection, it's redirection. And your discernment is helping you navigate it all, not with fear, but with wisdom. So don't ignore the inner knowing. Don't talk yourself out of the revelation. Don't let logic override what your spirit is screaming. If it doesn't sit right in your soul, that's all the confirmation you need. Because you weren't built to move with the crowd. You were designed to move with clarity. This is spiritual maturity. This is walking in divine authority. This is what separates those who are chosen from those who are merely curious. So trust your shield. Trust the knowing. Trust the voice within. Because when you walk in discernment, you walk in power. And darkness can't deceive what light has already exposed. You've heard the whispers, haven't you? That maybe something's wrong with you. That you're cursed, unlucky, or always on the losing end. But let me tell you now with clarity that pierces through every lie, you are not cursed. Chosen one, you are covered. What they see as misfortune is actually misdirection, divinely orchestrated detours meant to protect your spirit and preserve your purpose. The moments that looked like denial were, in truth, delay for your development. The doors that closed in your face weren't rejection. They were redirection towards something higher, purer, more aligned with your calling. You've spent seasons wondering why certain things just wouldn't work. Why relationships fell apart when you were finally starting to feel seen. Why jobs, partnerships, dreams, even entire environments crumbled just as you were gaining momentum. And in those quiet, tear-stained nights, the enemy tried to plant seeds of doubt. Maybe I'm cursed. You thought, maybe I'm broken. Maybe I missed my chance. But no, chosen one, what the enemy wanted you to believe was a curse, was actually God's covering. You were spared from environments that would have diluted your power, from relationships that would have derailed your destiny, from blessings that came too soon and would have crushed your spirit under the weight of unpreparedness. God doesn't just give blessings, He protects you from premature ones, because a gift given outside of the right season can become a burden. So yes, you've been hidden, shielded, sheltered, not to diminish your light, but to refine it, to make sure when you do rise, nothing and no one can pull you back down. You were set apart, not sidelined, protected, not punished. Think about all the places you wanted to go that didn't pan out. Now think about the hindsight. You have the peace you gained from not forcing it, the freedom that followed the loss. You may not have understood it in the moment, but your shield was active. You were being guarded from what looked good, but wasn't God. Because here's the truth. Your spirit is sacred, and sacred things don't belong everywhere. When you carry divine purpose, you can't move like everyone else. You're on a narrow path, not because you're being punished, but because you're being prepared. The narrowness creates focus. It cuts away distractions. It forges clarity. And in a world obsessed with broad gates and wide roads, you've been walking a path so few can even see. That's why they misunderstand you. That's why they think you're too selective, too withdrawn, too unavailable. But what they call distance is actually discernment. You've been learning to recognize where your spirit can breathe and where it suffocates. And the more in tune you become with that divine frequency, the more uncomfortable it feels to fake it, to force connections, to remain in places that feel spiritually bankrupt. So instead of calling it loneliness, let's call it what it really is: divine isolation, a sacred cocoon, a season of deep preparation, a time where your shield isn't just blocking what's harmful, but filtering what's essential. You're being set apart to be sent out, not for entertainment, not for applause, but for impact. And that impact requires purity of spirit. This is why God allows the stripping, the pruning, the seasons of why me. He's not being cruel. He's building your spiritual stamina, teaching you to trust the invisible, training you to walk by faith, not by sight. Because the higher your calling, the more dangerous it becomes to walk without discernment. And that's why your covering comes with discipline. Now, let's be honest, it's not always easy. Sometimes being covered feels like being denied. You see others soaring, flourishing, shining, and you wonder why your wings still feel clipped. But chosen one, comparison is the enemy's trap. Because what others build quickly without a foundation will crumble. But what God builds in silence, it lasts. You're not behind, you're being fortified. And don't forget, even Jesus had to go through seasons of obscurity before the miracles, before the crowds. There were years of silence, of ordinary days, of hidden preparation, because before he could carry the cross, he had to carry the weight of purpose alone. And like him, your covering is not casual, it's costly. You've paid for this clarity in tears. You've earned this wisdom through fire. You've walked through valleys most couldn't survive. And you did it without applause, without a safety net, sometimes without understanding, but you did it. And now, you're stronger, wiser, deeper, not despite the covering, but because of it. So the next time someone looks at your life and assumes you're cursed, bless them. They don't understand. They haven't seen the nights you spent wrestling with God, the dreams you surrendered, the choices you made in secret that shifted your destiny. They don't know what it costs to carry this kind of light. And they don't have to, because what's for you is already sealed. You don't need to defend it. Just keep walking. Keep trusting the covering, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's lonely, even when it hurts. Because one day soon, the very people who questioned your silence will witness your rising, not because you proved anything to them, but because God's timing is never late. You were never cursed. You were cloaked in divine favor, and what looked like delay was actually the mercy of being held back just long enough for the right doors to open under divine light. Every chosen one walks through fire, but the fire was never meant to consume you. It was meant to reveal you, to burn away the false labels, the wounds that tried to define you, the fear that held you back. And when it's all said and done, chosen one, you come out of that fire with something the world can't explain and hell can't touch, a testimony of resilience wrapped in divine armor. You've heard it said, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But you know by now that doesn't mean the weapons won't form. It doesn't mean the betrayals won't come. It doesn't mean the attacks won't hurt. It means that no matter what comes your way, it will fail to do what it was designed to do because the shield around your soul is impenetrable. You are walking proof. You faced weapons of rejection, of slander, of sabotage, of heartbreak so deep it made you question your own worth. You've seen friendships shift into spiritual ambushes, smiles that hid daggers, support that vanished when you needed it most. And through it all, the enemy thought each blow would be the final one, that this one, this disappointment, this betrayal, this loss would be the one to finally take you out. But here you are, and that's not by accident, because every weapon that tried to destroy you became a tool that shaped you. Every storm that tried to drown you ended up teaching you how to breathe underwater. Every breakdown led to deeper clarity, and every closed door preserved your destiny. It's not that you avoided the fire, it's that the fire couldn't touch what was anointed. There's a reason you confuse the enemy. It's because his weapons keep failing, his strategies, his assignments, his attacks, none of them have worked. And not because you've always been strong, but because your strength was never yours alone. There's been a divine shield around you the whole time. You've likely asked yourself, why didn't that situation break me? Why didn't I lose my mind? How did I get through that? And here's the answer. Because heaven intervened. Because angels encamped around you. Because there was a hedge of spiritual fire guarding you, even when you didn't ask for it. Even when you didn't know to pray for it. The enemy underestimated the hand of God on your life. He underestimated your endurance, your bounce back, your quiet strength, the way your soul refuses to stay down. No matter how many times life tries to knock you out, you've become a problem for the darkness because you're not just surviving, you're rising. And that terrifies every force that wanted you to stay broken. It's not just your survival that's dangerous. It's what you're becoming because of it. You're becoming wiser, sharper, bolder, more spiritually discerning, more anchored in truth, less interested in being liked, and more committed to being aligned. You're harder to manipulate now, harder to distract. Harder to bait into battles that don't belong to you. Because every failed weapon taught you something. It taught you how to watch without reacting, how to love without losing yourself, how to set boundaries that honor your energy, how to move with purpose instead of desperation. You didn't just walk through warfare, you graduated from it. And now, you walk with authority. The kind of authority that doesn't need to announce itself. You don't argue about who you are. You don't beg for inclusion. You don't chase after validation. You know what you carry. You know what you've survived. You know what it costs to stand here with your integrity intact. And that's what makes you dangerous. The enemy can't control a soul that's surrendered to God. He can't defeat someone who refuses to quit. He can't confuse a spirit anchored in discernment. And that's who you've become. You are the fulfillment of every failed plot. The evidence that grace still wins. The reminder that God always has the final say. Let me take you deeper. Every time you've cried, God, I don't understand, the heavens were not silent. Your confusion didn't cancel your covering. In fact, it activated it. There are battles you didn't even know you were fighting because your spirit fought for you in your sleep. Because angels were dispatched when you had no strength to stand. Because God didn't need your perfection, He just needed your persistence. And persist you did, with tears in your eyes and weight on your chest, with nothing but faith and breath left in your lung. You kept showing up. You kept believing. You kept whispering. There must be more, and heaven heard every whisper. So now, when you feel resistance, don't panic, don't spiral, don't doubt yourself. Understand what it really means. The weapon formed but failed, and it will fail again, and again, and again, because your light is untouchable, your purpose is unshakable, and your covering is eternal. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You've been through too much to pretend you're average. You've survived too much to believe you're cursed. You've seen too much to ever question whether you're protected. So the next time you feel the tension rise, pause. And remember every time you thought it was over and still woke up the next day. That's the power of your shield. That's the legacy of the Anointed. That's who you are. And every failed weapon is now a testimony etched into your armor. A story written in spiritual fire. A reminder that you are not just surviving the attacks, you are outlasting them. And now, chosen one, You come to the truth many will never understand. You carry a frequency hell cannot touch. You don't just walk through the world like everyone else. You move through dimensions. You shift spiritual atmospheres. You alter outcomes just by showing up. And whether you've realized it yet or not, your very existence is a divine interference against the agenda of darkness. Let that sink in. You are not just protected. You are disruptive righteously. Divinely disruptive. Your thoughts interrupt old paradigms. Your presence exposes deception. Your energy is an alarm bell in the spirit realm, signaling to forces of darkness that something holy is near, that someone who carries truth is here. You weren't made to blend in. You were made to resonate. That's why you've always felt like a misfit, a question mark, someone who could never quite get comfortable with the world's lies. That discomfort, that inner resistance to mediocrity, to spiritual dullness, to lifeless patterns, that was your divine frequency resisting the static. You were never meant to be silent background noise. You were meant to be a tuning fork for truth. There's a vibration in your voice, a clarity in your eyes, and a spiritual signature in your soul that marks you as heaven's messenger. The enemy knows it. He has tried to muffle you with distraction, confusion, and self-doubt. He's used relationships to tangle your light. He's sent emotional storms to wear down your stamina. But what he forgot is this: you are not powered by ego. You are powered by Source. And no matter how the enemy tries to cloud your vision or tangle your path, he cannot touch the core of who you are. That part of you is sealed, untouchable, hidden in Christ, made of light that cannot be dimmed. So what does that mean now? It means you move with clarity. You make decisions based on divine alignment, not fear. You release people without bitterness. You protect your peace like it's sacred currency, because it is. You speak when spirit prompts, not for applause or approval. And when you speak, you don't just inform, you awaken. You disrupt slumber. Your frequency is not just for your protection. It's for activation. Those around you, those assigned to your voice, your presence, your mission are being stirred every time you walk in truth. And every time you hold your peace in a room of chaos, something in the spirit shifts. Every time you choose compassion instead of retaliation, the atmosphere is reordered. That's what walking in spiritual frequency looks like. You've probably noticed it. People either gravitate toward you with deep hunger or retreat from you like they've seen a ghost. That's not your fault. That's your frequency doing what it was designed to do: attract what's aligned, repel what's not. You don't need to chase anymore. Not purpose, not people, not peace. You've become magnetic because your energy is sacred. And sacred things don't seek, they draw. They don't prove, they embody. And your embodiment of divine energy is becoming undeniable. So when hell tries to remind you of your past, remind it of your covering. When doubt whispers that you're not ready, stand in the truth that you were chosen long before you felt qualified. And when fear tells you to shrink, let your spirit rise louder. You are not who you were. You've shed the layers. You've walked through the fire. You've danced with shadows and returned with wisdom. And now, you are emerging, radiant, unshakable, fully aware of what you carry. You no longer ask for permission to exist. You no longer question whether you belong. You understand now you are the blueprint. You are the mirror. You are the frequency. You are the disruption to generational curses and spiritual stagnation. You are the answer to someone else's silent prayer. And that's why hell fears you. Because what you carry can't be touched. What you carry is kingdom. And now that you know, it's time to walk fully in it. The world needs your voice, your energy, your light. Walk boldly. Chosen one, heaven backs you. You're not just protected, you are sent. Now breathe, slowly. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of trying to prove, perform, and protect yourself melt into the truth you are held. You are wrapped in something eternal, carried by a presence that sees beyond your fears, beyond your flaws, into the sacred fabric of who you truly are. Nothing about you is accidental. Nothing about your path is wasted. You are divinely shielded, spiritually armed, heaven-backed. You've walked through shadows and come out shining. You've endured storms and still stand rooted. And now, every scar sings of your survival. Every silence has shaped your sound, and every closed door was a whisper from God, saying, "Not this way. I have better." Chosen one, your light is disruptive because it's real. Your presence is intense because it's pure. And the things you feel so deeply, they're evidence of how closely your soul listens. So rest in this. You are enough. You are covered, and you are becoming. Let the old fall away. Let the false narratives dissolve. Let the weight of others' expectations crumble. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not alone. You are on time. You are whole. You are chosen. And as you step forward, know this: every force of darkness that tried to stop you just witnessed your rising. So rise, warrior. Walk in your divine frequency. Speak in truth. Love in power. Shine in peace. And if this message resonated with your soul, if your spirit felt seen, share this with someone else walking through the fire. Subscribe to Soul Scripture. Comment your yes and stand in agreement with your breakthrough. Until next time, God bless you.